Now to finish this whole packet. Letter C, geometric forms in a still life arrangement. So we're going to freehand draw these forms with the same arrangements. We're going to essentially try to recreate these four objects down below. And then we're going to shade the forms trying to match the values as they are placed, including, but at the very end, the background and the tabletop shading. So step number one is to recreate by drawing the four objects down below. But instead of just trying to eyeball those four objects, we're going to use the same exact method that we used for the cube and for the cylinder to begin with. And if you notice, cube, cylinder, and if you compare those to the way that they're shaded over on the opposite side, it's going to be very, very similar. Very, very similar. But no shading yet. We're going to draw all of the objects in place first. So when you do a still life arrangement, whether it's a 3-piece, a 4-piece, a 2-piece, whatever it is, you want to begin with the object that is closest to you, the viewer. So looking at this, of the four objects, this circle looks as though it is going to be the closest one to me, and it's going to be the closest one to you. So to illustrate it accurately, and if you recall by flipping this over, we did this kind of crosshair segmented circle so we know that we have the right size and shape. We're going to do something fairly similar. Excuse me. But the first area to begin with, we're going to have a lot of vertical lines coming down because just like the cube and the cylinder on the previous side, we want to be sure that we get the edges laid out exactly where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to do the sphere or the circle first. Finding the outermost left edge very, very lightly. I'm going to continue this all the way down just past the bottom picture frame edge here. I'll do the same thing on the right side. All the way down. I know I'm going to have a little bit of tweaking to do down here because this line flared a little bit to the left. But I'm going to test and check it anyhow. So I'm going to set a fingernail here. I'm going to bump my eraser up against that fingernail. And then I'm going to pinch over where the outside right is. And then take it, slide it down, 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 down. And I noticed that down towards the bottom, it was just a little off. So I'm going to recorrect this. And then it looks as though I'm about ready to go. Check it again. Fingernail, bump the eraser, slide this down, 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 down. Perfect. Okay, so now, instead of using like a finger to mark where the bottom of that object is, we have the actual frame edge that's right here. So we want to be as accurate as humanly possible. So we're going to measure the distance from, and I'm going to draw some arrows on mine. You do not need to draw arrows on yours. But this is just to illustrate where I'm going to be checking for widths and depths and heights and all of that. So I've got this space here. Now, I was seeing if I could use just the body of my ruler, seeing if it was, or not ruler, pencil, seeing if it was going to be wide enough to fit within that space. It is not. So I'm going to use the eraser end, bump this up, pinch, slide this down to the middle, line that up, set my thumbnail, put a little mark, and then I'm going to measure that again. Pinch and slide. So it looks like my mark is going to be a little high in terms of where the actual frame edge is. So I'm going to bring this down just a little bit, and I'm going to check it again. Thumbnail, bump, pinch, come up, pinch. There we go. Now I've got the right spacing overall. So let's check our width one more time. And here's the reason, or here's a good reason why we want to check this width. If this is going to be a sphere, You know, if it were an egg shape or an oval shape, then we would have some different measurements in there. But since it's a sphere, a perfectly round object, it should be the same measurement from bottom to top as it is from side to side. And if I check that, that is correct. So I know where the bottom of my circle has to be, or the bottom of my sphere has to be. I know my measurement here. I can pinch this, and I'm going to rotate my paper, line this pinch up, put a fingernail, add my mark, and then I'm going to double check the height of this compared to the height of that. And pinch, and slide, and pinch. Oh, perfect. I'm good to go. So, before we just go and try to freehand this circle in here, we're going to take and draw our dividing lines. So we're going to do a vertical line straight up through the middle, and then we're going to try to split the difference here. So I'm going to try to find the middle between this line and this line. And now I've got my crosshairs, and if I flip it over and look, I should have an even 4 going all the way around. So I'll take, and very carefully, very, very lightly, remember my lines are always going to be a little on the darker side. We want your lines to be nice and light. Since it's a circle, which we're going to shade into a sphere, you want to be sure that nothing comes to a point. We want to avoid corners or sharp edges on a spherical object. And go back and do a little bit of touch up here. Be sure it looks somewhat accurate. And again, no shading. We're not doing any shading on this yet. We're going to lay out all 4 of these objects first. Then we'll start to look at the values that are there. Okay, I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to lightly go back, get rid of the lines that I do not need. And I'm not going to ghost erase this circle yet, because again, we want to get the placement of everything accurate first. So I've got my circle in place. Now I'm going to go through and do the same exact thing. I'll get the cube next. Then I'll move on in doing the sphere, or not sphere, sorry, the cylinder, and then last but not least, the cone. So we've got our circle, which we're going to shade later and turn it into our sphere. Next, I'm going to do the cube, then the cylinder, then the cone. All right, now I've got my overall outline in, and I'm not worrying about placing any of these cast shadows or that horizon line yet. But one of the things that I want to do is go back through and double check everything one last time. And while I'm doing this, I'm also going to show you a couple of things that might help just a little bit. It might help in getting the overall layout completed. So the first little tweak that I made when I was laying out the cube, I actually continued this diagonal out and I continued this vertical down so that I could figure out exactly where that intersect was going to be. That way, knowing where that intersect is, I can more accurately measure the height of this vertical, more accurately gauge the angle right in here. And I don't know, to me, it just helps in the overall layout itself. So that is one thing, and I'm not going to erase any of these marks that I have within the original. I'm going to leave those there, but I am going to go through and whatever I marked up here and marked down here, I'm going to erase it from my copy. Again, I'm not ghost erasing anything because I'm not getting ready to shade any of this quite yet. I'm just doing some tweaking and some double checking. When I laid out this cylinder, the bottom edge, even though this point right here is not the middle of this, because if I take and split this, just like we should do when we're adding the crosshairs for that sniper scope to figure out the proper angles here, this line is not the same as this edge. And the reason I wanted to mark this edge, the edge at that sphere, is because I wanted to know precisely where this bottom curve interacted with that object that's sitting in front of it. So I got a measurement from here to here, made a little marking here to here, got that laid out, and that helped me overall in terms of getting the proper curve at the very, very bottom of this. And again, the curve at the bottom should be the same as the curve at this bottom lip, and it should be a mirror of the curve on this back lip or that backboard edge, whatever you want to call it. The cone, you know, there isn't really a whole lot aside from measure, measure, measure. So I measured from the edge of the frame to the very, very bottom of that object. I measured from the edge of the frame, I'll put a little arrowhead there, edge of the frame to where that corner is, and then I measured from the edge of the frame all the way up to the very top of where that cone is at. Those three measurements really truly helped me to get the proper layout of all of it. So now, and again, I'm not shading anything yet, now I can go through, since I've double checked, I can go through, ghost erase, get rid of all of the lines that I know I'm not going to want to have as cartoonishly dark, which is going to be all of the outlines. And then once I've done ghost erasing all of this, still don't lay out the horizon line, don't lay out where the cast shadows are. We're going to finish ghost erasing this, and then I'm going to have you take a photo of just this image, the image of the layout, so no shading in this image. I'm going to take an image of the layout, and then I want you to email that to me. And then the next day, on Wednesday, that's when we will take and start plugging in some of the shading that I've got visually displayed up above. So, ghost erase, take a photo, email that photo to me, and then on Wednesday, I'll walk you through doing a little bit of shading on this. Take your time with the layout. The layout should take maybe 30, 35, possibly 40 minutes. Remember to keep all of your lines very, very light. We don't want anything cartoonishly dark. And again, no shading. We're going to save that for Wednesday. So finish your outline, ghost erase, take a photo, send it to me.